The nice people at K&F Concept asked me if I'd like to try out their magnetic filter system. So I said yes, and here it is. In this video I'll talk you through what the system is, how it works, take it out in the field and do some photography with it so we can check the quality of the filters and give you my final thoughts on it. I hope you'll enjoy the video. If you do, and you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. When I used my old big full frame camera system, I used a square, 100mm square filter system. But when I went over to the lightweight setup with a much smaller lenses, it was just too big. And I started using just some ordinary round screw-on filters. Now, as it happened, those filters were K&F Concept. So I'm already fairly familiar with the quality of their products. So when they asked me to try out their magnetic filter system, I was more than happy to do so. The system that they've sent me is I said magnetic system. It's a 55mm system, which is the right size to fit the 11-22 lens on my Canon M50, which is my wide angle zoom. And my other filters that I've already got, the screw-in filters, are also 55mm. I can use them on my other lenses just by adding a step-up ring. And the magnetic filter system is supposed to make using filters a lot quicker and easier. So let's have a look and see what we get in the box. What we get is quite a nice pouch, which has got like a belt loop thing on it and a little metal ring, so you could hang it off of a carabiner or something on a tripod. It's nice and padded. Open it up, and inside we've got 4 compartments, because there's 4 parts to this setup. We get a screw-on magnetic adapter ring. We also get a screw-on magnetic UV filter, and then a magnetic circular polarizer, and finally a magnetic ND1000 or 10-stop ND filter. So how does this work? Well, what we do, we take the lens, and all we have to do is screw on the magnetic adapter ring. Then, if I want to use the, let's say, the 10-stop ND filter, it just goes on with a magnetic click. And it's easy to take on and off, but it's not going to fall off accidentally. It's nice and solid on there. If I want to use a circular polarizer, that just clips on. And of course, if I want to stack them, circular polarizer and the 10-stop, and that's on there, and that's again still nice and solid. It's easy to remove, but it's not going to fall off in any kind of normal use. If you don't want to use the magnetic adapter ring, your other option is to screw on the magnetic UV filter, so that screws on exactly the same, and then the filters just click onto that in exactly the same way. First impressions, they are very easy to use. Clipping them on and off is going to be absolutely a doddle in the field, and that might make using the filters quite a bit easier than messing around having to screw filters on all the time. In order for this system to be really useful for me, what I need to be able to do is leave this magnetic adapter ring on the lens all the time. I just want to leave that on there, and if I okay, so with that on, my lens cap actually still fits, so you know, I could just, you know, leave that on there, stick it in the bag, and it's ready to go whenever I want to use it. But I also want to be able to use it on multiple lenses. Now, as I already said, I use my existing 55mm screw-in filters on my other lenses. So on my 55-200, I use the same filters, but all I do is I use a step-up ring, because the 55-200 is only a 52mm filter thread, whereas this is a 55. So one of the things that I'm interested in knowing is, can I buy more of these? Because what I'd like to do is have 2 or even 3 of these that I can just screw onto my lenses and just leave them on there the whole time. I don't want to have to be swapping them around every time I change a lens. It kind of defeats the object. The second thing that I'm interested in is, are there any other filters available for this? Because 10-stop filter is really useful. Circular polarizer is really useful. The other filter that I think is really useful is a 6-stop filter, because sometimes 10 stops is just too much, whereas a 6-stop is really useful. So I think the first thing to do is check and see if there's some other filters available from K&F Concept for this system. I've had a look at the K&F Concept website and I can't find any either additional filters or any additional magnetic adapter rings available for this filter system. It looks at the moment, on the website at least, that you can only buy this magnetic system as this complete kit. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop them an email through and ask them the question. And then I'm going to take this setup out into the field, do some photography with it, and see how they work out. And hopefully by the time I've done that, I'll have got an answer. I might have picked a bad day to do this because it is pretty windy, and I'm going to need to find a location that's sufficiently sheltered from the wind that kind of, you know, vibration or blur from the wind blowing doesn't affect the quality of the images and invalidate the test of the quality of the filters. Hopefully I can find something. I found a spot which is out of the wind. It's got some moving water. We got some, well, not really waves, but just sort of lapping water coming in around some rocks. So it's going to work for trying out some long exposures or longer exposures. I've also got some quite harsh light, which will help me to evaluate how well the filters cope with flare. Now, the objective here isn't necessarily to get a fantastic image, it's basically to try to prove that the filters don't degrade the quality of the image, either by making it soft or increasing the amount of flare and that kind of thing. So I think what I'm going to do is try setting up a shot, kind of looking out along this rock here, and then I'm going to shoot it without filters, just with a circular polarizer, just with the ND1000, the 10 stop, and then with you know, combinations of filters. And I will try out the UV filter as well, because I want to see what effect that has on the image in terms of whether it increases the likelihood of flare or whether it does anything to soften the image. So let's get set up and we'll see what we can do. Okay, so I've got a composition set up. It's just the rocks coming in from one side and kind of the waves in the foreground and a bit of cloudy sky. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to take a shot with no filters, and because it's bright, it's 1/400th of a second at f11, and that's my control shot to see how the detail holds up when I get the filters on. So now it's time to put on the first filter, which is going to be the circular polarizer. Okay, circular polarizer is on and doing its thing. I want to change my exposure time to about 1/200th of a second. The interesting thing about this circular polarizer is it's only one piece because it rotates against the magnetic ring rather than having to rotate against its own kind of fixed housing. Okay, we'll take that shot. Right, take that off. And now I'm going to put on the 10 stop ND1000. And that is obviously going to make a huge difference to the exposure. It's going to bring it up to at 3.2 seconds. Okay. Now what we're going to do is stack those two filters. So I'm going to take the ND1000 off, put the circular polarizer back on, make sure I've got the polarizer dialed in, and then put on the 10 stop. That should give me a exposure about 10 seconds. Okay, I've shot all of those at about 17 millimeters. What I do want to do now, I'm going to widen the focal length all the way out to 11 mil, which would be 18 mil on a full frame for reference, because I want to see with both filters on here stacked, do I get any vignetting? I can't see any vignetting with just the circular polarizer. I'll now put on the 10 stop ND again. Light keeps changing. I'm going to do an 8-second shot on this. I can see some vignetting at 11 millimeters with both the circular polarizer and the ND1000 on, and I'd kind of expect that with stacking this kind of filter. Yeah, definitely some vignetting there. Not sure how bad that's going to be once I apply lens profile corrections in Lightroom, but something to bear in mind. To be honest, I wouldn't normally use a circular polarizer very wide angle because it can create some unpleasant effects anyway. The last thing I want to do really on this test is I'm going to put on the UV filter instead of the magnetic attachment ring, and then I'm going to put the filters on and do the same thing again because I want to see how those images hold up. That image was the 10-second exposure shot with the circular polarizer and the 10 stop or ND1000 filter stacked, except for the sky. The sky was the 1/400th of a second control shot that I took, and the reason I chose to blend those two together was because I liked the fact that I'd caught the gull flying through the scene. It just appealed to me. Anyway, enough about the image, let's talk about the filters. Using them in the field is really quick and easy. The most dangerous time, the time when you're most likely to drop and break filters, is when you're screwing them on and off of the lens, and this filter system takes away that problem completely. Yes, some vignetting at wide angle, so at 11 millimeters there was quite a pronounced vignette when I stacked the two filters, so both the circular polarizer and the 10-stop filter. The vignetting was no better or no worse when I used the UV filter as well. Now I expected that. These are quite small filters. I mean, it's only 55 millimeters diameter, and they can only make them so thin, so there's bound to be a little bit of vignetting when you stack them. I suspect if you had a larger lens size, so if you've got a 67 millimeter or larger lens size, the profile of the filter will be smaller compared to its diameter, and therefore the vignetting might be not as bad. There was no vignetting using an individual filter or indeed an individual polarizer or ND1000 with the UV filter. It was only when I stacked the polarizer and the 10-stop that I got some vignetting, and it was only at 11 millimeters. I've done some additional tests back in the office, and at just over 12 millimeters the vignetting disappears. There's also no colour cast with these filters. I'm not overly bothered about colour cast because it's very easy to correct in post, but it's nice that there's nothing that I could see colour cast wise. I've been through the images that I shot here, you know, really pixel peeping at 100%, trying to see if using one or multiple filters stacked resulted in any loss of quality, any blurring, any loss of fine detail, and I can't see anything. There's nothing that's showing up, at least at the 100% view. I didn't really get much of a chance to check out lens flare in this test, basically because the sun was mostly behind some clouds, and it was still pretty bright, and on the wide angle shot that I did with the filters stacked, you can actually see where the sun is in the frame. And I've checked the shots with and without filters, and there's no difference in any apparent flare there, although it's something I would probably want to check out again another time. So these filters are really nice quality. They're priced really well, so much so that even if you're not a fan of UV filters, and I'm not, if you take the UV filter out of the kit and chuck it in a drawer and never use it, this kit is still pretty good value for money. The only thing at the moment that I think kind of lets it down is the lack of flexibility with other filters. Now, as I said in the early part of the video, I've contacted K&F and they tell me they are going to be introducing, or their development department is working on, and they're going to be introducing some additional ND level filters, so hopefully a 6-stop, maybe a 3-stop. I'm actually going to keep using them. I'm probably going to put the magnetic adapter ring on my wide angle lens, my 11-22, and I'm probably going to put the UV filter on my 55-200 with a step-up ring, so I can leave them on there. And then if I need a circular polarizer or I need a 10-stop, it's going to be really easy. If I need something other than a circular polarizer or a 10-stop, I'm going to have to take those rings off and put my old filters on, which I'm going to take with me as well. So that's it. Let me know what you think. Oh, I should say, there's a link down below and also a code for a discount. So if you use the link and you use the code, you get a discount on these filters if you decide you want to buy them. I don't make anything from this. It's not an affiliate link or anything like that. But you get a little bit of money off if you decide you want these filters. If by any chance that link doesn't work where you are, or the discount code doesn't work where you are, do let me know and I'll happily contact K&F to find out if there's an alternative link from your location, because I'm not sure if they're kind of geographically limited. That's it. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it a like, share it on social media, leave me a comment, and if you're new here and you've enjoyed this, don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. As always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, so thank you very much. And until the next video, bye.